I guess just thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. We have some of our members. So we're Natalie and Martin of the Gin Cooperative, and we obviously established International Scottish Gin Day, and that's how this came about. So we have a number of sponsors, supply chain sponsors of International Scottish Gin Day, which is Saturday the 2nd of October, incidentally. And we have a number of our Scottish gin producer members. So thank you very much for joining us. This is obviously, the purpose of this is just to have a bit of a chat about supply chain in the spirits industry. So we've pulled together a few hot topics, and you know, hopefully everyone's keen to contribute. So I'll just go around the squares as we see them in no particular order, so you guys can introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your business. Will we start with you, Odin? I can see you first.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to participate. My name is Odin. I am the founder and CEO of iStill. iStill makes modern and advanced distillation equipment that, well, is quite essential or could be very helpful in gin production. We're on the market for 10 years. We don't just design and build stills, we also educate a lot of our customers. So we've got the iStill University for educational programs, and we have a recipe development department. And we feel that by bringing those three things to the market, we sort of create a one-stop shop, not just selling you a still, but actually helping you as a distiller, in this case a gin distiller, to become successfully, because, well, you need to know what to do, and you need to know how to develop your recipe to speed things up. Very happy that we are probably the leading manufacturer of distillation equipment since the last 2 years. We were the angry young kid 10 years ago, and now we're almost like household appliance to distillers.
Great, well said. Okay, Ben, do you want to go next?
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name's actually Anthony Benton, but everybody knows me as Ben. And as you can see from the warehouse behind, we're a global merchant of botanicals. The company was started in 1882, although I've only owned it since November 2015. And in our warehouse, we've got about 600 different varieties of botanical, and there's around 100 of those which we regularly supply to distillers all over the world. So that's it. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, hello everybody. And Natalie, not to say it like that, Natalie, apologies, but Natalie and everybody. I'm from Windmill in Aberdeen. We're primarily a printer, very old printer actually, 40 plus years old. And over the last few years, we've realized that unwittingly, partly because of our geographical location, we've morphed into a drinks supply chain partner. Work extensively with some very good friends on the space side round. And we have found ourselves as a high quality label manufacturer for spirits, bottles, and point of sale packaging materials. I would like to name two key people who I like working with. One is Claire, Logan, also on this call, and the other is Will from Flexi-Hex, for whom we distribute some of his amazing eco packaging. Everything else, apart from Will's products, everything else we manufacture in-house. Small boxes up to large, very creative point of sale material. I think I've run out of time. Usual problem. But that's me, I'm Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma Macalister, co-director of Beinn and Tuirc Distillers. So we're based down in Kintyre, and so our signature product is Kintyre Gin, but we've now got several other products on the range. So we began because we installed a hydroelectric scheme on our estate. So I've got a very passive-aggressive ice machine in the background. So we can, yeah, so we put in a small hydroelectric scheme on. We're on my husband's family estate to try and inject a bit of income. And then because of that, we thought we've got a nice, say, sustainable source of power. Why don't we make something with it? And gin was the obvious thing because you know, craft distilleries were popping up all over the place, and we really wanted to create Kintyre gin ourselves. So we were really lucky with the timing. So from the very beginning, sustainability has been kind of built into the core of the business. So we're always trying to, as well as kind of in our production, we're powered by hydro. We're always looking at how we can improve, because it's not a case of, yay, we're powered by hydro, that's it. It's sort of painfully obvious that people are really asking for more, and they're drilling down, and people want to know, you know, well, what about your ingredients? What about your packaging? You know, and people are asking all the questions, and we need to make sure that we're kind of keeping on top of everything that we can do better, actually. So it's an ongoing thing. It's not a case of, yeah, that's it, we're done. But yeah, that's us.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Okay, Will.
Hi.
Hello.
It's nice to hear everyone's little intro, and yeah, thank you for inviting us. So yeah, I'm Will, one of the founders from Flexi-Hex, and as Andrew said, we're a sustainable packaging company. If I just do a 10-second whistle-stop tour of kind of where we've come from. So the product was originally designed for surfboards, which are expensive, fragile items that needed to go in transit. And we quickly realized, sitting around the table, that this product we designed for surfboards actually fitted really well over glass bottles. And that's where we sort of headed in quite a quick direction. And really, you know, with sort of the growth of e-commerce and distilleries really wanting to be able to sell their products direct to customers, we've seen huge growth within our company. And the driving force has always been to remove single-use plastic from protective packaging, and we came up with a solution which is now, we have a patent in the UK and Europe, and it's a honeycomb paper-based paper product that protects bottles in transit. And yeah, we've got big plans for Flexi-Hex, and we want to be a globally recognized brand within the protective packaging industry.
Fantastic. Okay, Claire, you're up next.
Yeah. So I'm Claire Logan, one of the sales managers for Vetroelite. Vetroelite are an Italian company. We were founded in 1994, and we design and distribute a range of high-end glass bottles, predominantly for the spirits industry, but we also cover cosmetics, food, and wine. And I would say more and more over the last few years, we've sort of branched out into the bespoke bottle, which we're seeing in particular in the Scottish gin industry. And Vetroelite UK, we're fairly new, but we've been up and running and based in Scotland for about the last 5 years now.
Fantastic. Thanks. Okay, Jim, you're up next.
There we go. Hi everyone, my name is Jim Rankin. I'm 7th generation owner and commercial director of Rankin Brothers and Sons. We were founded actually in Stirling in Scotland in 1774, and we've been clinging on and hopefully developing the business ever since. We grow our own cork out in Portugal. We've got 4,500 acres of cork forestry that we're custodians of, and we have manufacturing both in Portugal and in the United Kingdom. So very pleased to be taking part in this discussion.
Thank you. Fab. Okay, Martin, you're up next.
Hello everyone, my name is Martin Murray. I'm a co-founder of Dunnet Bay Distillers with my wife Claire. We set up business 7 years ago to allow me to exit oil and gas and to raise our family in a location that we were born and brought up ourselves. It's a fairly fragile rural economy, and creating 2 jobs seemed like a big enough challenge, but 7 years on, we've got 20 staff and we export to around about 25 different countries, so going well. And we just took ownership of a 200-year-old mill in November last year, and we've started plans to save the mill and turn it into a production site for our business.
Fantastic. Okay, Ian.
Hello everyone, I'm Ian Stirling. I'm co-founder and co-CEO of Macalister Limited. So we started our business in 2014 with the aim to build a major new whiskey distillery in Edinburgh. And we still haven't achieved that, but hopefully by next year it'll finally be finished. And in the meantime, we established a small gin distillery in Leith as well, back in 2016, 2017, around about when I met Claire Logan. Actually, I think she just started at Vetroelite, and we started putting together our gin Linden Lime, which was launched in 2018, just towards the end of 2018. And that's grown in a very exciting way. We're currently preparing to move to a new larger gin distillery also in Leith, where we can expand our production and bring in visitors and also just have some space, which will be magical. So that's us. And then yes, the Port of Leith distillery, our whiskey distillery, opening next year in September 2022 at the moment. So there we go.
Great. Okay, Debbie, you're up next.
Hi everyone, I'm Debbie Strang. I'm one of the co-founders of Shetland Distillery Company, around about the same age as Martin, the company, not personally, obviously I'm far older than Martin. We've been around 7 years on the craft gin sort of boom that just keeps going on and on, thank goodness. So Shetland Real Gins from the UK's most northerly distillery, and obviously probably slightly more additional challenges with supply chain and what have you. But yeah, delighted to be here with everyone else.
Thanks, Debbie. Great. John, you're last. Last but not least.
Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Technology. Good morning, everyone. John Henderson, Managing Director, owner of Image on Glass, based in Crieff in Perthshire. Been doing this for 25 years, I hate to say, but delighted to be part of the gin. We did it with word slide transfer, but
we're
2 years ago and bought. Can you hear me?
No, we're struggling with your connection.
Hello?
Here a wee bit, John. Yeah, we can hear you. You've frozen on the screen, but no.
It's technology here is diabolical.
Yeah, so sorry, just tell us about, you've obviously moved from your kiln to you've got some new kit there, quite new exciting kit.
Yeah,
there.
we've gone digital, direct print with UV cured inks, very green, no centigrade, no waste paper. It's going so well, we're actually looking at buying another bigger version of what we've got. So fantastic. That's hopefully for 2022, but delighted to be here.
Thanks very much, that's great. Okay, so now that everyone knows who everyone else is, we will just get straight into the topics. I mean, we just put a couple down for the producers, a few for supply chain, and questions for everyone, but obviously everyone can contribute where they would like to. So we'll kick off with the producers. We thought, with supply chain in mind, you know, what would you say, as just the four of you there today, but what would you say are the most important factors when choosing a supply chain partner? And feel free to just go ahead. Ian, Emma, Martin.
I would say, I think we definitely relied a lot on word of mouth at the beginning, because we were obviously so new to it, completely new to it. I mean, right from having a recipe developed, it was a name that kept cropping up, Leon Webb, so he kept, and that's kind of continued throughout. So, and I think that's the lovely thing about the Scottish gin industry, is that it's really close. I love telling people on our tours that we've got a Facebook group that we're all on, and you know, people answer questions, and it's not this kind of cloak and dagger kind of thing. It's really a really supportive environment. So that's definitely kind of the first port of call, is going to fellow distillers and what do you use, who do you use, and it's that kind of we rely a lot on that, and that's
yeah, good old-fashioned word of mouth. And I mean, would that be the same for you other guys? Do you find that?
Yeah, definitely. We had recommendations early doors, and that meant a lot to us, because people that we've been working with and had great relationships with were able to point us in directions. So, for example, we worked with a family member who's a herbalist, and he recommended Beinn for our botanicals, and he had a long-standing relationship, and we've now been together for 7 years, getting our botanicals from Ben's company. And then the same with John at Image on Glass. We were recommended him by one of our designers, and we used them for some of our products. That really helps us. And I think the other thing I would say is that when suppliers understand our challenges and are willing to work towards solutions that work for both parties, that really does help, because like Ian said, space is an issue for craft distilleries, and sometimes it's not easy to get everything delivered all at once. So when people can work with you to come up with solutions that suits both parties, that really helps.
Yeah, I think Martin's picked up there. Communication is absolutely key. So that sort of personal introduction really helps, because it's generally because somebody has a good relationship, and understanding either our location or our restrictions on storage or whatever. But also for me, you know, it's quality of the product, and quite often we don't see that until we actually get it. And when it's come the distance, when it comes to us, if it's not right, it is a major headache to sort it out and maybe return it or not return it. And none of us wants to do that in these days of, you know, increasing sustainability. I think value for money, as ever, particularly now, has to work for both parties. That reliability of delivery. And I think now, and we're as much in the game of looking at getting to net zero and what we need to do, knowing that our suppliers are conscious of it too. We don't expect everyone to have solved all the problems and all the issues, but to be very aware of where we are on this journey together towards net zero.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, and I agree with everything they've said. And I guess the other thing I really look for is a very proactive attitude from our suppliers. Generally encounter new suppliers when you're embarking on a new project or new product or whatever it might be, and having their energy to help drive that forward while you're juggling all the other balls, and they're chasing you for information, they're chasing you to push things forward. That's what you really need, actually, rather than having to go, have you done this yet? You know, when can I expect this? So yeah, that's always a major plus. Yeah,
no, that's great. That's some really fantastic insight, and I'm sure some of the supply chain guys, their ears have perked up a wee bit there, but I'm sure you just tick all those boxes already. So the second thing I was going to ask you as producers was, you know, what are some of the biggest lessons learned related to suppliers when launching a new brand or a new product?
I think it's what I kind of touched on before, is that you need to do your homework and you need to drill down, because people are asking the questions, and it's not just about your product, it's about every step of your process and, you know, every part of your business. And it is, I think you do get a bit caught up in the that you haven't solved all the problems, and I think sometimes you have to just remind yourself that, you know, it's what you said, Debbie, it's the journey. And this is why this is such a good chance to get together with people, because we all kind of are on the same journey, and the fact that we're, you know, willingly on it, committed to it, I think speaks volumes as well. So yeah, so
can I just ask, actually, it's interesting, like, speaking to producers, because what happens when you introduce, say, a new product? So you might introduce a new drink that is in a new bottle that has a new kind of top to it or something like that. Is it quite a complicated process to do that? Obviously, I'm from a sort of packaging background, but sort of what sort of problems do you have when sort of introducing something new to market?
Well, I always say, and I can say this because I'm not one of the distilling team, the distilling and making the gin is the easy part. Everything else just takes forever, and you have never left enough time. And so I'm always conscious, you know, planning, and then something comes along and you want to hit a certain launch date, like the 2nd of October, which is maybe in some of our heads, you know, because it makes sense and we want to be part of the whole Scottish gin movement. But yeah, time and planning when you're running a craft distillery and you've got so many other things going on. And we know at times, apologising to Andrew at Windmill here, we put impossible deadlines in to get something done. So yeah, I think certainly for us, we try really hard to plan, and almost, you know, this year we will actually have brought out 4 new gins, which was only possible because we had lockdown last year, and we're able to actually develop the different sort of types of gins coming out. But the labelling, new bottles, new colours, new brand, whatever, just takes a long time, and we just don't have sufficient time to plan. Well, that's my experience.
That's really interesting, and just to go back, actually, it's really interesting what Ian was saying as well, just in regards to suppliers, just to be able to sort of chase up and make sure that producers have kind of the products they need when they need them. And just thought that's a really sort of quite telling of the actual industry itself, and something we probably need to sharpen up on in regards to kind of packaging.
Yeah, certainly. I put a lot more value over that than you know, in retrospect, you know, lessons learned. 100% cheapest is not always the right answer. The customer service is just so key, and that ability to follow up and that attitude is more valuable these days, really, than anything else.
Can I just come in and make a comment on that, and particularly pointing to the comments that Debbie raised there, or the challenges that Debbie raised. It's bringing us in early. It's bringing us when in at the same time that you have those conversations with your design team. You know, we talked in the introduction, or before the formal introductions, about some of the challenges that we've got in the supply chain right now. It takes time, particularly if we are to meet and achieve your ambitions and your targets with regard to sustainability, environmentally positive solutions, and this, that, and the other. These things take time to engineer into some of the products and services that we support you with. So give us as much time as you possibly can, and then we can manage your expectation when it comes to supply on time, and we can help you hopefully try and achieve your launch dates and your rollout dates. But yeah, bring us in at the same time as the designers.
I'd just like to add as well, and just on what Ian was saying about the communication, but one of the biggest, you know, changes that I've experienced over the last few years is the collaboration between the supply chain and also the brands, because for me, I feel like I'm part of that brand, you know, whoever it may be. And when they take you on that journey and they include you in that journey, you start to learn more about what they need when they need it. Now, I'm not saying we get it right every time, far from it, but you start to learn how they work. And that's starting, for me, it's starting to help, especially with forecasting. Because, you know, I get that, you know, a lot of the smaller companies, they don't have a team sitting, doing their forecasting for them. And coming off of a pandemic and Brexit, I think forecasting is such a dirty word at the moment. It's nigh impossible to, I think, for many people to know what they're going to do. But I think the brands allowing the supply chain partners to be part of that process, and if everyone can work collaboratively, I think it's going to be easier, especially for next year, because this year's been such an unknown, and I think we're heading into even, you know, difficult times next year as well. So just that communication for me and customer service has to be, if not the priority, but top 3 priorities for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that as well. I think the concept of building long-term partnerships where there's a lot of trust involved down the supply chain encourages good communication, makes everybody much more aware of what's coming down the track, what needs to be done. And that's particularly important in our sector, because clearly materials can go short, crops aren't in, there's all sorts of issues, you know, beyond just COVID and Brexit. The weather, global warming is affecting harvesting, it's affecting poorer crops and things. And so the more communication you've got, the better, for sure.
No, well said.
No, could I just add that we're talking about when you're designing a new product, that you maybe try and get your designer to involve the manufacturers at an earlier stage, so that we can hopefully iron out any issues, or tell you, no, that can't be done, or we could try and do such and such. We fairly frequently get presented with designs that are nigh on impossible. And you know, the designers have spent so long and so much of your money coming up with this concept to be kind of basically let down at a late stage. Just involvement with manufacturers, we can tell you early on if what you're trying to achieve is possible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good advice.
And having spent 20 plus years working as a graphic designer, John, I absolutely see where you're coming from. There's nothing worse than developing a concept for something, taking it to the client, you get signed off, but the actual practicalities or the production side of it can't be achieved, or it can, but it's going to be an extremely expensive process. So yeah, I think better communication between designers and their clients, as well as trying to get the supply chain involved at an earlier stage, will help. It won't eliminate some issues, but it'll certainly, you know, supply chain can raise these issues at a quicker time in the production process, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, that was a good start. Moving on, maybe just some questions for the supply chain guys. Although we've all got involved there, which is great. We were just interested to know, and I guess where your new business typically comes from. I mean, Emma talked about word of mouth there. Is that kind of is that what you see yourselves?
Well, obviously we get most of ours because we've joined the Scottish Gin Cooperative. That was a joke.
That's good, Ben. Good, nice intro, that one.
It's clearly marketing in the background does drive business, and we that's why we're very pleased to be a sponsor for the Scottish gin industry. But we get lots of referrals. We get referrals from distillers, and we get referrals from master distillers who go from distillery to distillery. And as in all business, it's the highest quality of lead that you can have. And if you don't build from that a long-term relationship, then frankly you shouldn't be in business. So
it's really interesting, kind of from, I think I forgot to say at the beginning, we're a very young company and this is all very new to us, and it's kind of well, the packaging industry itself is completely new, and so we brought this, I suppose, new product to market, but we couldn't sell this product unless it was the right price. We couldn't sell the product unless it did the actual job of protecting bottles in transit, and we couldn't sell the product unless it looked slightly different or had an aesthetic look compared to standard packaging products out there. And probably the same for you, Ben, as well, that your products are really, really high quality, and it's kind of it's just really interesting that you can't just have one element in business and suddenly your business is going to take off and everything is going to be okay. It has to be a combination along with marketing, customer service, and for us being a really new business, it's kind of been an interesting journey. But I think I do have to reiterate that word of mouth is incredibly powerful. If someone's recommending something to someone else, then it's a massive tick, and they might have seen it somewhere else before, and it does. I think that's where we're getting the most amount of our growth, and we have a very small marketing budget. We are increasing that this year, but we've had kind of 270% sort of year-on-year growth, and that has been through kind of word of mouth and the support of kind of distilleries, around the UK and Scotland.
Yeah.
Clearly, price and quality are always important in any business transaction, but I think for the supply chain, for particularly for small distillers, the element of reliability of robust supply is just absolutely crucial. You want the same thing when you want it at the right price and right quality. So it's service all the time.
Yeah. Odin, were you going to say something there?
Yeah, well, when we came to the market, we were sort of looking at the models of how stills are actually purchased and sold, and we didn't want to have a sales presence on every continent. It's very expensive, and you get people that start to push on USPs, right? We wanted to have an interaction, a connection, and talk to people. So for us, word of mouth, but also education has been very important. Education allows us to bring people in and to get to know each other, and even when projects don't go to plan or things need to change, if you know each other because you've spent a few days together, it makes conversation so much easier, because it's not on a number basis, it's on an actual, hey, we know each other basis, right? And for sure we are going to help fix things or adapt things in such a way we can get there. Word of mouth for us was amazingly important, because we came out with new technology as a contender. So the only thing we could do is basically try to get an iStill into every country, and then refer anybody that was interested to that person, because it's not just talking to us, it's talking to other distillers, that you create a sense of trust and belief into a new technology, especially.
I think that's really interesting, actually, just talking about new technologies, because we've also found that, you know, it's a brave step for the early adopters of new technology, and we, you know, I was talking about it the other day. It's so important, you know, for certainly for us, and Odin, presumably for you as well, to, you know, to honor that kind of, you know, support that you get from your initial early adopters, because those are the people that then give you the confidence in your own products to then push it on and grow and grow and grow to bigger customers. So yeah, I mean, we work with customers that sort of place very, very small monthly orders, but they were an early adopter, and it is, you know, it's very pivotal, you know, very pivotal for us, just having those very small kind of orders coming in initially.
Yeah,
I think as well as having a very strong, innovative program and product rollout, I think it's also important to have a very loyal, trustworthy and robust local supply chain as well. Again, with some of the complications of the current supply chain, and particularly looking at the challenges of the global pandemic and this, that and the other, we need to shorten our supply chain rather than have that supply chain too long. So if we can help you identify, or the producers identify, local resources. I mean, we ourselves, we've got manufacturing in the UK, we have logistics in the UK, we stock for many of our customers, so that will compress the lead times. But we also support our producing customers with local teams. In Scotland, we have a technical and a commercial team. So it's really, really important that we engage with you and with other producers from a very, very local level.
I completely agree. We're probably slightly different on this case, but we although we're based, you know, in Cornwall, you know, about as far away from most of you guys as you can get in the UK, but by partnering with the right companies, so kind of Windmill Print in this case, that, you know, we're able to kind of offer a kind of you know, a service that is yeah, is quick for the producers to place those orders and get the products to them. So then we very much see, as we kind of like, in order to gain our growth, is by partnering with yeah, the local supply chain, in order to kind of dovetail into that system, really, to bring efficiencies and yeah, in production and delivery.
I think that that probably leads quite nicely onto, we kind of touched on it before, but you know, it might be good to have a chat about, just move on to the topic of, you know, green policies and what everyone's doing to try and be more sustainable, and how that just plays in. You already touched on it, how that plays into the whole supply chain, and your end customer wants to know more about what you're doing to address these issues. What's everyone's experience of that at the moment?
I've had the most. Sorry, go on.
No, you carry on.
I think we've been shot up the most on that, because packaging that we've produced traditionally has ended up in our clients, i.e. the drinks makers, clients' hands. So we've been responsible for what the end user has been left holding after the drink has been drunk. So they're looking at it very, very critically. It's come back through our clients and through to us as a supply chain partner, that we are actually obliged to give somebody a sustainable solution, that don't want anything plastic or not recyclable hanging around their home, which is what we've had over the last 18 months. So that's led us to go on.
It's interesting, because it's quite easy to, I suppose, as companies to greenwash, and it's a relatively easy thing to do. As Andrew said, you could have a plastic product and say that it's got a certain element that is recycled plastic, and that makes people feel slightly better. Reality is, companies, I think, have to look at everything they do, basically, to everything they do in the office, how they get to work, and it's kind of, for us, we're carbon neutral. We want to be, we're pushing for B Corp in the next, well, we're starting the process in the next 4 weeks. But it is, and you know, right down to kind of like the way that kind of staff are treated, what, you know, the way they are in the company, and certainly the way sort of goods are kind of transported and delivered. But I would say it is very easy to greenwash, and I think, but I think people, you know, customers are starting to see through that, and I think companies have to genuinely be passionate kind of about being more sustainable. And the reason for us, you know, the driving force for us was, you know, obviously that we had the Blue Planet, single-use plastic is a problem, we know that. Plastic in itself is an amazing material, we can't deny that, but when it gets into the environment, it's very, very kind of detrimental. But we knew that paper is very easy to recycle, and that's what kind of drove us to really sort of push our products. And you know, everyone knows how to recycle paper or cardboard. It can go into the kind of the household kind of recycling system and gets processed very, very easily. But plastic doesn't, and we kind of know that it gets exported out, etc., etc. So yeah, it is complicated.
One of the things that uses the most energy is of course the distillation process of the gin, making the gin itself. And one of the almost crusades we've been on with new technology is to basically have it become more efficient. And with new technology and insulation, we're able to build stills that only use 30-35% of the energy that an older style traditional still uses. And that's a great gain, right? And we always discuss with our customers, what can we do with the energy we make? For instance, the warm water that you create during a distillation run, can you use it for mashing? We've got customers in Scandinavia that actually use it as a passive additional ground floor heating system. And that's the kind of things I love to sort of think about.
We put ours in our hot tubs, which is very
actually the best idea I've heard so far. Yeah.
Although we've got to warn them, because obviously it's very, very hot. So yeah, we've got to be careful that they don't get in it straight away, or we try and cool it down. But yeah, that's one thing that we've been doing. So
I think for small businesses, it's always going to come down to for things like renewable energy or whatever, when the cash flow allows, or when you actually are able to maybe get some assistance from government. And I'd just like to give you an example of how this is really going to be very difficult. Is the Community Islands Fund was a fund set up for sort of post-COVID towards net zero, £2 million fund, and we all had to rush to get our applications in July. This has all got to be done by next March. It's been oversubscribed to the tune of £16 million worth of applications. That's from small businesses. That's just Orkney, Shetland and the Western Isles. So you just replicate, it just speaks volumes in itself. And we still don't have an outcome of whether we've been successful or not. I suspect we won't be, just with the sheer oversubscription. So we're now mid-September and the projects have to be complete because of the funding restrictions and what have you, and by end of March. So and I'll try not get on my soapbox, but certainly for small businesses, I feel there is so much support going to community groups and social enterprises. There shouldn't be a village hall throughout Scotland without solar panels on, because there's funding for it. Try and get it for small businesses. It is really difficult at the moment, but I'll stop because I could, even through the screen, you're getting, this is a challenge just at the moment. There is obviously money out there, but the way it's been directed, I feel, is not helpful to small businesses.
I mean, so we were lucky with our hydro. If we'd done our hydro scheme 6 months later, the tariff would have dropped so much that it wouldn't have been viable. So now it's not viable to put in the size of hydro scheme that we have. So, and yet we live in Scotland and we generally have a fairly reliable supply of water. So yes, none of these decisions make sense. It's like you say, but they're at a higher level, and we're
I know, and timing quite often is always the way, isn't it? And to be fair, you know, there is support out there for new job vacancies. The new graduate schemes opened up, so there is other support. And we're recruiting at the moment a sustainability coordinator to try and help us on our journey, just because we are such a small team. So there is support in some ways, but it doesn't really make up for our massive energy cost at the moment that we're stuck with until we can find some way of sorting that out.
I think the comments that Emma and Debbie make are so valid here. I think we can all get caught up in this clamour to be sustainable without asking ourselves the first and most important or critical question: what is it? What does sustainability mean to us, and how are we able to move our business or pivot our business into a more sustainable field or area? Sort of nowadays, as closure manufacturers, we have to combine sustainability, innovation with function and an aesthetic beauty. We have a pathway towards a more environmentally positive and sustainable future called Project Nova. And Project Nova is a dizzy matrix of sub-projects that are looking into all facets of our business. And as Will pointed out earlier, it's not only about the materials that we source, and we're polymer injection molders as well. So, we're coming from a space where we're using heavy industrial materials, and we're wanting to see if we can affect as much change as we can to move them into either biosourced materials, recyclable materials. But we're stuck in the plastics game. We've just got to give it, and plastic has got a bad rap at the moment, and we need to move it into a more positive space, and we'll do that. But of course, the priority is fit and function and performance of the closure. So we can't easily and quickly change materials without going through a long process of trials and understanding that we get the same performance. But going back to our Project Nova, it's about who we are, what we do. It's about looking into our behaviors. It's about as much as it is about looking into our processes, the controls of our business, and the materials that we use. But the first, again, and most important question is, we've got to ask, what does sustainability mean to us? And for us, it's all about having a toolkit of parts. So we're not going to achieve our ultimate goals and ambitions overnight. We understand that it's iterative and incremental gain kind of process. One of our most recent wins has been FSC accreditation for our forestry out in Portugal, which is fantastic. It's independent validation of all the good stuff that we're doing out there, the good husbandry and the good sustainable practices that we deploy out in the forest. But that's just one thing. That's just one of our targets on our ongoing and developing journey.
Can I just ask, Jim, was that a decision internally to give it that name? Is that your name for your work towards this? Because
it points to it. Well, one of our main farms in Portugal is called Quinta Nova or Nova. Nova in Portuguese is new, so we picked upon this, those connections to have a project, which meant that we were reinventing our business, and 6-7 generations in, we've got to keep moving forward. We've got to make ourselves relevant as much for today and tomorrow as we have been in the past. So Nova for us was the sum of those kind of parts, really.
That's really I think that's really clever, though, to get people to buy in who maybe think we all get caught up in the buzzwords of sustainability or whatever. To have a company name that draws people in to be working on all the aspects is a really good idea. I'm going to to take that one, Jim. That's how I'm going to do mine. I won't call it Project Nova. Obviously, we'll have to come up with another name. But no, I really like that.
Brilliant. I think
quite
it's
happy to license it for you.
I think it's really positive to hear that, you know, there is a big change and shift in social attitudes towards the environment and towards responsibility, as well as the fact that, you know, I guess there's got to be that drive and where applicable, that innovation technology to drive these things forward. So I know in one way or another, amongst yourselves, you're all doing your own green thing. You know, I know John has moved to his direct to print technology. I know Claire at Vetroelite, and I know you guys can use 3D printing technology to create 3D models of bottles now. So I know amongst yourselves there's lots of great things happening across the supply chain. So I think it should be applauded, should it, and supported.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
So I guess the next question is, if you could give a new spirits producer one piece of advice relating to the supply chain, what would it be?
I think we maybe already answered this. Give lots of notice. I'm guessing that's probably what it is, but
I think communication's key, and I echo what Jim said. Like, when you're starting a project, before you decide on your launch date of, you know, whatever it may be, you need to speak to everyone involved to make sure that we're all on the same page, because it's all very well picking a date and then, you know, only the cork arrives but the bottle's not ready, or there's a longer lead time on something else. But it's just communication. And even if, you know, again, I go back to forecasting, you know, a brand might order the same amount of bottles every year, but then they get that one export chance, and it might be, you know, a vastly higher amount of bottles or corks or labels. As soon as you get an inkling, I always say, tell me, because then behind the scenes, we're thinking, do we need this? Do we not? Listen, if you don't need it, it's fine. From a glass perspective, you know, if it's a stock item, fine, we'll manage it internally. But the more information that we have, the more helpful we can be and work collaboratively. Again, it's not always going to be perfect. There will be delays and whatnot, but just talk. You know, we're always available, and, you know, we're in this country as well, and we've got an office here, and, you know, you're never wasting our time. We would rather be on our phones every hour of the day having a conversation than trying to second guess what we think, you know. And the biggest thing for me is letting someone down, you know, and someone that's put their heart and soul into that brand, and you're having to tell them it's not happening. Like, I don't like that. And that's something as a supplier I really want to try and avoid at all costs.
I couldn't agree more, Claire. I think communication is absolutely key. The more advanced warning you've got, the more chance you've got of delivering what expectations are.
This is just a question, actually, just to the producers, actually, just like the question is about, you know, if someone, I guess, starting up a, you know, a new gin or something like that. Do the producers feel that online presence in regards to kind of e-commerce sales is quite critical, or does the traditional kind of like route to market through kind of sort of middleman bar, you know, to bars, restaurants, is that still a strong business kind of proposition, or is kind of online sales growing? And maybe that's to Martin, or I don't know, or Debbie.
Sorry, my
probably a bit both. Sorry, Martin, you go.
No, I think Martin got cut it off there for a minute, so he probably missed that.
End of the question, and that was it.
Sorry, Martin. Yeah, so I was just saying about kind of, I guess the question is, you know, about if someone was start up, you know, a distillery, is the route to market, you know, is the traditional route to market through kind of a middleman, maybe to bars and restaurants, still the best route, or is it a sort of blend of having a, you know, potentially, you know, an online shop and tapping into that kind of e-commerce kind of market in regards to kind of getting products directly to customers, as well as potentially having a, you know, a shop on the premises, etc. How do you see it kind of breaking down as we move forward and come out of this pandemic?
Okay, so 7 years ago, we were in a totally different space where a craft gin, you approach a wholesaler and you could have your pick of wholesalers. In the last 2 years, wholesalers have been reducing their portfolios. and they get gins, I don't know how many times a week they get gins on the desk, and that route to market just isn't going to be an option for gin starting up right now, or maybe in rum it would be, but gin it isn't at the moment. Nowadays, I think you probably have to have an on-site shop and a decent footfall to be able to make the business viable. To make the business work further afield, you have to do the legwork. You have to go to shows, try to build up relationships with your customers so that they can buy online or come and visit you and do a tour. But by going out and doing the visits to shows, you're also able to go and meet potential trade partners, build up maybe a list of accounts that would stock your product, and then approach wholesalers with a list of customers. And when you do that, then they're more interested to speak to you. But if you just approach them saying, I've got a great gin, it's going to sell really well, they just won't speak to you. You need to come backed up with customer lists for them. In the last few years, we've seen a change in our business where before the pandemic, we launched our refills for our customers, and they were offering an online option for customers, and they took off. And then when the pandemic kicked in, we launched a subscription model, and now the best-selling thing on our website is our refill pouches and our subscription model. We've been locked in discussions with HMRC for nearly 2 years now, and they won't approve our refills for the on-trade. And it's really frustrating where you've got a demand out there and legislation is too slow to keep up. And that really does concern me about a lot of the green work that distilleries are doing, is that we'll probably be quick enough, fast enough to implement changes, but will legislation be there to keep up quick enough? Not a chance, not a chance. So for me, if I was starting today, all again, I would do a website and a shop with a decent footfall, and then try to get out and do the Meet the Maker events so that people get to know you and get to know your brand, and you build it that way. And it's not going to be an overnight success. It's going to be a couple of years before you see like any real traction now.
Yeah, interesting.
Can I add to that as well? I think somebody that's starting out, they need to be, if they're serious enough to start a business with gin, they need to look at brand consistency and realise that the supply chain is vital to that. We'd all remember that fizz problem a couple of years ago when the fizz producers couldn't actually add the CO2. There was a shortage on that. That was actually from downstream supply. It wasn't the actual factories. It was downstream ingredient. It's the same, I think, today. I think we can protect companies' brands by ensuring consistency of supply and owning the supply chain. I think that needs to be realised if somebody's starting out launching a drink.
I think that's important, because if you get your supply chain right, it means you're not spending so much of your precious time trying to change, trying to fix, trying to save money, trying to speed things up. You're then able to focus your time on making the product and selling the product, which is where you really want to be focusing your time. You don't want to be trying to find boxes to come in a week's time or having those challenges. So I think that is good advice to get in place at the start, is to make sure you do that part in the background, and then that should just take care of itself. You've got the relationships, you know each other, how things work, and then you just go after trying to build a brand.
Yeah, it certainly sounds from the producer side of things that having clear communication with your supply chain is important, but from supply chain, managing expectations and sort of delivering on what you promise you're going to deliver as well. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think managing expectations is key and critical, because if someone, a new producer was to come to me and say, I want to design a bespoke bottle, and I say, sure, 3 months, no problem. And then 2.5 months into it, it's, you're just lying and causing problems. But if you're open and honest with, people that are new to the market or existing customers that are changing supply partners, whatever, that's all you can ask for. And sometimes delivering bad news is, 9 times out of 10, it's the worst thing in the world, phoning someone saying there's a delay or we're not going to be able to do it. I know I said, but you know, X, Y, and Z, this has happened, it's out with our control. It's life. Not at the time, because at the time, I just want to, you know, I probably speak for everyone, go into a corner and not have to deal with it. But, you know, if you can try and be as open and honest and transparent as possible, we're all going to be mad. I get that, that's fine. But then tomorrow's a new day, and, you know, we just have to keep pushing. And I think, you know, years ago, being a supply partner or a producer of glass bottles or labels or whatever, you know, you sold your product and then you moved on to the next one, and then you did your forecast for the next year. But now, and I speak for Vetroelite, we've almost had to change and become more of a, you know, like a brand ambassador for our customers as well. You know, we like to embark on that journey. And I think, and I said earlier, I feel part of the company that I work with now, which is new. And I think that's why, you know, we take things a lot more personal now, because you feel that you're contributing to problems and you don't want to, but nothing's perfect. There's always going to be issues, and it's just learning to manage that as best you can.
It's really interesting there, and it's kind of like, I mean, I think everyone is experiencing issues in the supply chain at the moment, whether, you know, importing, exporting, and also just getting product delivered on a truck. It's very, very challenging, and you know, with COVID, Brexit, you know, the kind of list goes on. I guess there's kind of lots of excuses out there, and also lots of problems that people are facing, and of which we have faced. And I think, you know, you're 100% right, Claire. There's, you know, there's kind of like this honesty and approach, and quite often the supply chain, you know, when, you know, for us, we have suppliers, and sometimes it's not linked to the way we're delivering. It's further down the line, and it could be, you know, that a ship is stuck somewhere, or you know, there's a number of things, and I think it's just this honesty, and but it certainly is challenging at the moment, and I do hope that things smooth out a little bit, because I think it's going to be tricky, probably for the economy, really, if things carry on sort of like they are, really. I think there may be signs of inflation, etc., coming through, but hopefully things start to smooth out, and we can start to do business as we kind of did before this.
Can I encourage, I suppose, following on particularly what Claire said, for new producers, I want to encourage those new producers not to be afraid of asking some pretty robust questions of their supply chain. You know, ask what we have done for others, how we have reached out to other brands to protect and serve those brands, and to respond to the challenges of the brands in terms of their own aspirations for an environmentally positive future or sustainability. So ask, don't be afraid to challenge your supply chain and say, well, who else do you work for? Because it points back to that question of testimonials and word of mouth. And we're very soft sell here. We prefer to promote our customers' businesses before our own, as it were, and we've got several social media campaigns that do just that. And word of mouth is really important for us, because it carries so much more weight. Yes, we've had long-standing relations with Mature Whiskey Co. and this, that, and the other, but we really, really deeply enjoy and get the most, I suppose, out of our relations with the owner managed businesses out there, because we know what's going on. we can get under the skin of your business, and we can get to understand your direction of travel, your strategies moving forward. And yeah, we can talk to you about, as Claire said, the important things like forecasting, but to actually understand your strategies and your direction of travel is hugely important. So never be afraid of asking us questions about our business. You know, what are we doing in terms of our investment in people and processes, in materials? Push our buttons. it's the only way that we can make progress as well.
Yeah.
I would say look for long-term partnerships, look for robustness and longevity. We've got customers that we've been servicing for 70 years. I think the thing about those sort of relationships is the whole way the relationship is just solid. Communication is really good. Everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Odin's speaking now, sorry. Odin.
Where is he?
Sorry, Odin, we had you on mute there just because there's some background noise. Do you want to start again? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Am I unmuted right now?
No, yes, you are. You're unmuted.
Okay, right. Yeah, I was listening, so I don't know what happened there. I'm very much in tune with what Jim said. I think communication is important, and that got addressed in answering this question. But there's a step before that, and that is my advice to a starting producer would be like, educate yourself, right? Learn, talk to other distillers, become member of a Facebook group like the services you guys provide, because it's invaluable to hear from others what experiences are with suppliers that you want to work with or not want to work with. Communication is one thing, but that comes maybe a bit later, right? And communication with salespeople is usually not a difficult thing to do. Educate yourself. It's your business. It's going to be your success or failure. Make sure you own every step of what you're doing.
Yeah, no, well said. I guess just looking at the time with that in mind, I mean, we've not picked up on all the topics that we had in the agenda, just because I think we've covered so many of them as we've sort of talked along. But I guess just maybe to one thing we thought we might end on was just, you know, why do you believe Scottish gin's popularity has continued to grow year on year, and what do you think the future of Scottish gin looks like? You know, there's so much going on right now. Do you think that it's due for a change?
So in my experience of doing, obviously we do tours, we get people coming up every day, and people are still just very much in love with Scottish gin. I think it's brand Scotland as well, generally, is really, really strong. And I mean, I don't think that's going to fade anytime soon. And there's just so many fantastic individual stories in every single producer. And I think that really helps. And I mentioned before the kind of closeness that the industry has. I'm told it's not the same in England. It's very different landscape. But, and people love hearing that we talk to other distillers. We're great pals with other distillers. And, there's a lot of mutual help and support out there. And I think that's all part of it, definitely.
Yeah.
From our perspective, distillers in Scotland have long been regarded and recognised as amongst the world's best. You've got the provenance, you've got the heritage of Scotch and Scotch whisky production. But I think, brand Scotland, it's so exciting that for us, we have anywhere between about 5 and perhaps 8 new brands coming into our business every single month. And, I might have had an internal conversation with colleagues a year ago that said, oh, no, it'll slow down at the end of this year. It hasn't. The pace continues to be maintained, which is fantastic, and it points to the enthusiasm and the demand for all of the really good stuff that's happening in Scotland right now, right across the distilling space.
And from our perspective, I think the gin cooperative I think there's a real sort of camaraderie between sort of Scottish distillers, and it's really nice to kind of hear all the different stories, and also the way, as we touched on earlier, the way that distilleries will speak to each other and kind of learn from each other. And I think that is kind of a really strong, it's a really strong connection that you have in Scotland. And I think it's not to be underestimated, the power of that.
I think geographically we are a small country, but I think we have continued to punch well above our weight for the fact that we've got some amazing food and drinks producers, creating world-leading brands that are, in demand all around the world. And I think because we are a smaller country, I think there's something a bit romantic about it as well. Now, as Jim touched on, we've got that heritage of producing world-class whiskey. It's in demand. So certainly for Scottish gin, if it can tap into that market as well, be seen as a leading country of world-class distillation, I think that all helps the consumer buy into Scottish gin as well.
Absolutely. You feel it when you're going out to find importers and out in the international markets, the goodwill and fondness for Scotland just immediately takes a barrier down in those conversations, and it's very nice actually. You always have people are pleased to hear from you in that regard. So we already have a lot going for us, even beyond, but before you get to the amazing products that are emerging out of the Scottish gin industry.
Yeah. Great, fantastic. Okay, well, I mean, we've skipped over a few things, but we've had some really good discussions there. Is there anything else that anyone else wanted to touch on that they haven't said, or any hot topics that we've missed out there?
I was just going to say on the the key thing in terms of new gin brands emerging, and we've spoken about take lots of time, lots of communication as well. But I think the key thing I found when I was starting out is it's amazing just how ambitious you can be with what suppliers and many of the suppliers here are able to do for you. The opportunities are 10 years ago, you could never have had a hope of doing what you can do now in terms of the minimum order volumes required, the technology, the flexibility that these suppliers can give you. It's a great time to be starting a new gin brand, really. We could never have considered making our own bottle, just 10 years ago, all these different elements. So allow loads of time, allow plenty of time, communicate, research, but be ambitious, because you can be, I think is what I'd say.
I just want to echo, what Ian said as well, when you were talking about, the Scottish gin and, how it continues to grow. I mean, I think, Jim, you and I, for 9 years, have had the same conversation in September saying, when is this bubble going to burst? And thankfully, it hasn't. But what Ian said as well, I think Scottish gin producers, and maybe I'm biased because I work in this market, they're not afraid. They're not afraid to push boundaries on their bottles, on their labels, on their cork. They personalize it. They make it a story. It's part of their brand. It's not just a liquid that's in it. They have this whole story now that people buy into. And that's what you need in order to get your following as well, because with so many brands on a shelf, immediately you're buying with your eyes, first of all, if you've not tasted the product. And I think that's where Scotland has really led the way, and I hope continues to do so. They are really doing some fantastic things at the moment.
We're still getting new inquiries from distilleries all over the world, and I think the market is still booming, absolutely booming. And Scotland's got such an amazing heritage in every sense around this, that Scotland can lead the world.
Yeah. I think we're great at telling stories, and I think being able to tell that story through a label or through your bottle or through your website or through your social media, I think we've got a lot of unique elements that gin producers can pick from and tie into their brand and inject heritage, inject engagement, inject a fantastic story. And as you said, Claire, I mean, I think first and foremost, consumers buy with their eyes. It's what you see on the shelf. It's how it looks, but then if you can back that up with the liquid inside the bottle being fantastic, I think it's a winning formula, And I think what's unique as well about all this supply chain sponsors who've joined us today is the fact that you're all producing something physical. Yes, granted, it's all underpinned with good quality of service, customer relations, but at the end of the day, there's a physicality to what you're actually doing. There's something you can hold, there's something you can touch, it's tactile, I don't think there's a lot of other supply chains in that sort of position, is there?
No, exactly.
So.
Yeah.
In our case, smell, Martin.
Yeah.
If you walk into the warehouse, it hits you like a train. Wonderful odor of smell.
Yeah. We know what it's like when we're visiting distilleries and you walk in the door and they're doing a distillation run, and it's just juniper and coriander and you know, yeah, it's delightful, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Fabulous. Okay, guys, I think we've made good time, so that's probably a good place to end on. Just want to say thank you very much. I hope everyone got something out of that. Certainly from our point of view, we really value everyone's contributions. I think that was really good. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks
Talk
so much,
soon.
guys.
Best
Cheers.
wishes.
Cheers, Martin.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.